Welcome to the On Pace podcast. Today we are talking with Catra Corbett, or better known by her nickname, Dirt Diva. She's an ultramarathon runner who runs 100 and 200 milers. She is the author of the book Reborn on the Run, and just last weekend she completed the Silver Moon Race 100 and had a finishing time of 29:35. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm here with Truman. Everybody knows who he is.
Hello,
Hi, buddy.
Truman.
Yeah,
Hello.
he's got to sneak in there for a minute just to say hi to everybody. So yeah, I'm doing great. Yes, I did Silver Moon 100 last weekend, and people are confused. They're like, well, you weren't at the race. They had actually a virtual option. So not very many races, shorter races do that in California. They'll have like, you could sign up and then run like a 50K on your own or half marathon or whatever. And you just produce your time, with your Garmin or whatever. So this race, I was going to actually run it, and my boyfriend Phil had to work, so he wasn't going to be able to run it. And I thought, oh, well, they have this virtual option because I knew of it because my friend ran it last year, and she came to my house when I lived in Fremont and used my house as an aid station. So I looked online and I was like, hey, they got this virtual option. Let's just do that. So that way we could do it at home in Bishop. And I've been wanting to run a solo 100 miler in Bishop just to get more familiar with the area. And it's just something I like to do. I like to do solo 100s and 200-mile runs. So anyways, that's what I did. So they allowed you to sign up on their virtual option, and you just gave them your information from your watch when you were done, your time goal and all of that. And that's what a virtual race was. So it's Silver Moon 100 is the name of the race, and they do have that option for people that can't make it out to the race, which I thought was really, really cool. So I got to see
really,
Bishop.
Really cool.
Yeah, so I got to run around Bishop 100 miles. So it was pretty cool. And Truman was in the 24-hour race. He paced me just 17 miles, but he got a nice belt buckle for just going out there and doing
He looks
some
tired.
pacing. Oh, he's always like this. He looks stoned. That's his look. I mean, he's either running or he's sleeping, and it's mostly sleeping. So that's his deal. And he just sits here quietly, like you won't even notice he's here.
So what's it like doing a virtual on your own?
So it's not the first time, and I've done lots and lots of like solo 100 and 200-mile runs. So it's not a big deal to me. Believe it or not, it's actually fun because I was doing it around an area I haven't run all these trails in Bishop, and I looked at the maps, and I kind of looked at a Google Maps, and I know we have a lot of canals in Bishop. So I just like looked from the bird's eye view and thought, okay, if I can go here, I can run out to here, turn around. It wasn't like I was going to get lost. So who cares that I went 30 miles one direction? I knew if I turn around and come back, I'm coming back. I'm not going to be lost. I'm safe. I have my stuff, and there's water in the canal. So I have a filter bottle if I ran out, which I didn't, because I made it to town and I was able to get food and water and use my house as an aid station too. So it was actually really, really fun. I really had a great time being able to explore Bishop like that. And then on when was it? Yesterday, my boyfriend is a pilot for Sierra Life Flight. He flies airplanes, air ambulance, basically. So I went up yesterday with him, and I was like looking down below to see all the places that we ran. And then I thought, shit, man, in a couple of weeks, let's do a 200 miler. So I'm going to do 200 miles in a couple of weeks up here just because. Why not? Right.
Well, that's the mentality of an ultra runner, it seems.
Yeah. And some people are a little more crazier than the others, and I think it's the addictive personality. So.
Oh yeah, I'm on board with that little bit of a quirk.
Then you understand.
Yeah, I've been talking to ultra runners all week, and I was supposed to run an ultra a couple months or last month, but I got deported from Thailand, so it got scrapped on me. And then
you got deported?
Yeah, I used to live there for professional Muay Thai.
Oh, cool.
And then I retired like 2.5 years ago, and then I started after a little bit of problems in my life with some substance abuse. I started running, and then became unbelievably addicted to that.
Yep.
Well, and that all came from, as I'm sure everybody knows who he is, I've listened to David Goggins' podcast on Joe Rogan.
Yeah, he's pretty amazing. Yeah.
And then that was it. That was the day that I changed my life and just went back to being a savage.
Good for you. Good for you. Congratulations on that. Sober warriors rule.
Yeah, it's much better. But yeah,
Yeah, it's like
now I'm trying to sign up to a 12-hour ultra not far from my house and get the
good. And
first.
you're in Canada?
Yeah,
Awesome.
not far from Toronto.
Okay, great. That's awesome.
So what got you into ultra?
Well, I got clean and sober, and I actually started, I was just working out in a gym. I wasn't a runner, and I hated running all my life.
That's every
And
single ultra runner story.
I
Oh
know
my God.
oh my God, I hated it. I was, I liked going to dance clubs and hanging out in that type of scene. And I was really into the goth scene. So I was like totally opposite of what I look like now, is all black and white, long black hair, listening to goth music, just super negative. And yeah. And I was into doing speed and drinking a lot. And so, but anyways, I got arrested for selling. I used to sell methamphetamines, and I got arrested and went to jail. And that scared me straight, believe it or not. It's like you hear that, oh yeah, scared straight, but it truly happened to me. I sat in that jail cell and I thought, what the hell am I doing here? This is not who I was supposed to be, not how I was raised, and it wasn't, I got into doing drugs later in life. I mean, I always drank and I had a problem with that. And then once I was introduced to speed in my 20s, that just like took me to a whole nother level. And it was like that whole party atmosphere and club scene, you stayed awake for days. And so that's
Oh
just,
yeah,
yep.
I've been there.
Then
Yeah.
So I got arrested, got clean and sober, was going to meetings, and I was court ordered through all of this because I got what was called drug diversion. So I ended up not having to spend a bunch of time in jail. My ex-boyfriend did. He got 6 months, but three months in jail and then 3 months house arrest. But he took all the blame, although I was the one that did the sell over the phone. Like, they didn't have his name, but he was originally the one that was doing all the drugs. So he decided to take all the blame for me, so I didn't have to go to jail. Plus, I didn't have a record and he did. So they were a little more lenient on me, and they said, as long as you go through this program. So I had to go through this 6 months to almost a year program. And, I decided the minute I got out of jail, I was thinking about going vegan as well. I've been a vegetarian since I was a little kid. And so that just made me decide that minute I got out of jail and was changing my life. I'm like, I'm going to be vegan. I'm going to go vegan now. So I did that, and I started working out in a gym and, lifting weights and, doing the elliptical and stair stepper and all that. And I used to walk 3 miles every day with one of my other dachshunds. I've always had dachshunds. And so one day I decided, you know what, I'm going to run this little 3 mile loop. And so I ran it, and I was like, wow, I'm a runner. I ran, and I never thought in a million years would I'd ever run. And my father was doing marathons, and my brother was running when he was little half marathons. And I absolutely hated anything to do with running. I played soccer. I refused to, like, I'd sit on the sideline. My dad was my coach, and I'm like, I'm not running. I'm not getting sweaty. I'm not doing it, So for me to be able to do that, it felt so good. So, like a couple of days later, there was a flyer in Barnes and Nobles for a 10K. And I was like, I'm going to run 10K. So, and I hadn't even been running less than 2 weeks, and I signed up for a 10K. Ran it, and I felt so good. And there was a flyer for the San Francisco Marathon on my car when I finished that 10K, and it was in 3 months. So from 3 months from the time I started running, I ran a marathon. And it just went
That's.
from there.
I mean, I was running before in my Muay Thai career, but when I started running again, I signed up for a half marathon probably like a month and a half after I started again, or a month and a half until the half marathon after my first run. I mean. And then
Yeah.
I ran that, and then the day after I signed up for a full marathon, and after I finished that, I signed up for another marathon 3 weeks later.
You're like me. Well, so I did a marathon, and I finished that marathon. It was funny. In the middle of the race, I'm like talking to some man that was running next to me, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to run Honolulu Marathon in 2 months. And he's looking at me. He goes, didn't you just say this was your first marathon? And I said, yeah. And he goes, well, why are you talking about running another one? And I said, because I want to go to Hawaii and run a marathon. So had I known about ultra marathons right away, this is back in 96. I didn't know about them yet until the following year. So I decided so that was my first year. I did a couple of marathons, and the second year I was running every marathon in California. So on the weekends, sometimes I would have a Saturday, Sunday marathon. And then I found out, like, within a few months of doing all these or doing marathons in the state, I was like, wait, there's this thing called ultra marathons. And I asked some guy that was running all these other marathons that I'd see him at. And I go, what is an ultra? And he goes, oh, it's a 50K, 31 miles. And I said, well, I could do that because I was already running back to back marathons on a weekend. And I thought, oh, shit, I could do that. So I decided to sign up for 50K. And it was like 105 degrees. It was super hot. I ran it and I finished and I was like, oh my God, I didn't know anything because it was my first, I didn't know anybody, first of all, that ran other than seeing some people at these marathons I was running. And then this guy I knew that was like in his 60s ran the 50K that I ran too. And so he ended up running it as well with me. And then I ended up leaving him and finishing ahead of him. But finishing that, I mean, it was so hot out and I didn't know you were supposed to walk like the hills, you know. I had run trail marathons and I still was like, you know, that mentality is like, why are these people walking? You know, it's running. It's not supposed to walk. You're not supposed to walk. And so these people, as I was running up all the hills, I could hear people behind me going, is this your first ultra? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, okay, well, you should be walking the hills. And I'm like, who are these people? They're telling me to walk. And I thought, this is a running race. Well, all those people later on are passing me on like, when my legs felt like lead at the end, like the last 5 miles was on asphalt and I was like dying. And they're like, see, you should have walked. So I immediately signed up for like a 50 miler because I'm like, okay, I'm trained. So I did a 50 miler. I did one more 50K and then I did another 50 miler and it was like the worst weather ever, pouring rain. Like they allowed people to drop down to the 50K, you know, to change their race like at the start. And I'm like, no way, I'm going to run through this weather. And in the middle of it, I'm like, okay, I'm going to get through this. So I ran this 50 milers, pouring rain, really bad weather. I mean, immediately at the start, I like ran into a puddle that was like up to my knees. You know, it was just like freezing cold. I mean, and I told myself, you know what, if you get through this, you're going to run a 100 miler. So I finished it and I was like, okay, I'm signing up for a 100 milers. So this was all within less than 4 months of me running my first 50K. I ran my first 100 miler and it was because I didn't know any better. I didn't know anybody that ran and I'm just like winging it on my own, you know? So, and at that point I had been getting Ultra Running magazine. And this is back in the day when you like, in the back of the book in the magazine, there were the entry forms and you just cut them out and you mailed it in. There was no like internet back then. That, I know I'm really old and it's weird to think about that. There was no internet. Like, what did we do? You know, we mailed in checks and we went in the back of the magazine to sign up. And back then you called up the race director and talked to them. You know, it's like there was no emailing. So you had a question, you called them up. So yeah, so signed up for Rocky Raccoon, and that was my first 100 miler in '99. So
Wow.
yeah, and I finished, and it was a great feeling. It was like I was just amazed that I got through that blistered feet. I mean, like I didn't know anything. There was no manual. Like now we have the internet, which is so cool, and these great books out that tell you people's experiences and all of that. But back then there was none of that. It was like you just figured it out, you know, on your own. And so, and that's why I wrote a book. And it has how I got into running and overcame so many obstacles, Reborn on the Run. And I just wanted to let people know, like, they can do whatever they want. I mean, it's up in your mind. It's your mindset that people often tell me, like, there are other runners and they're like, oh, I could never run 100 miles. And I look at them, the big question mark over my head, and I go, that's not true. You don't want to run 100 miles. If you wanted to run 100 miles, you could run 100 miles. If this guy could run 550Ks with 3.5-inch legs, there's no excuse. Anybody can run ultras. And I always use him as an example. He's 13 now, so he's retired, but he ran as fast as 50K at 11 and a half years old. So, and he didn't start running until he was 6.5 when I adopted him. So just FYI, if a 9-pound wiener dog can run a 50K, anybody can.
So I kind of think it's the same mentality of addictive people. Like they think like they can't get over their addiction because of their mentality, the way they are. But
because they're not ready yet. They don't want to.
I think it's the most powerful thing to have that mindset, because when you apply that mindset to something else, it becomes the exact same thing. I'm sure you can speak to that because you're running
Totally.
constantly.
And still going I've been running 100 milers since 1999. And here I am still going at 54 years old. And there's like, it's all up here. You just train your body some, work out with weights, keep yourself in shape, but you could do whatever you want. I mean, there is no end to what you can do. It's all up here, what you want to do. So I never limit myself. It's limitless possibilities of whatever I want to do.
It's testing those limits, right? Let's find out where the limit is.
And there isn't a limit.
It's not here. It's not here.
Yeah, that's why you keep going.
That's the ultramarathoner mindset, it seems.
Totally. But, like I said before, people say, oh, I could never do that. And it's not true. And same
You
with
don't want to do
getting
it.
clean and sober. It's like, I just can't do it. And it's like, well, you can, but you have to want to. You can't do it for your family. You can't do it for your kids. You can't do it for other people. You have to do it for yourself. And unfortunately, I had a sister that was a heroin addict, and that was her same thing. Sometimes people's bottom is death. And she tried for so many years to get clean and sober. And she was so proud of me. She was just like, how can you do it? And I can't do it. And I said, well, you have to find a passion. And that's really important too. I tell people they have to find something they're passionate about to take up that space that they're using to go get drugs or to go drink. You have to find something that's going to keep you going and keep you on that right track. And she just, nothing. She lost everything in life and still couldn't, she wasn't ready to give it up. And so unfortunately, bottom could be death with people. And I'm sure I could have ended up there easily too, or in jail.
I could have been there too.
So we just learned from that. Yeah, we just, and it's like, I just hope, by our messages, people that who are been through recovery, that they can see that there's a better way. And that was really important when I wrote my book too. I wanted to share with other people, like, look what I did and look what you can do. You may not want to be an ultra runner, which is fine, but you may have another passion, yoga or whatever. Just apply yourself to that instead of doing the drugs, instead of drinking, because there's so much more to life. And you would probably agree it's a better life without all that shit.
Yeah, it's
and drama.
It's find your own personal grind,
Yep.
That's what Tessa said on the first podcast when I talked to her. Find your own personal grind. And that's so true to everything. It's like, yeah, you can feel like you have no reason to be here.
Yeah.
If you make a reason to be here and you find a way to do it all the time, especially if it's something really, really positive, you're going to see the impact it makes on other people. And those people, the way they make that impact on you it's like it's a never-ending reward system.
And it helps you keep you clean and sober, because I think of times when I'm out there and I'm suffering in a race and I'm like, wait a minute, when you always get the, a little voice over here, the positive and negative, and they're like, quit, you don't need to do this, you're hurting, stop, and it's like, no, I got to keep going, and there's nothing wrong with me. I don't have a broken limb, and I'm doing it for other people to show them, like, yes, I'm a woman. I'm a strong woman. I'm in my 50s and I could still do this. There's nothing physically wrong with me. Yeah, we all get tired in 100 and 200 mile races. If you didn't, then you're amazing. If you don't get tired at some point in the run, but you're going to have ups and downs. And that's just like life. We have ups, we have downs, and it's all how you handle it and trying to stay positive. So when I have that negative voice, I just completely knock it off and I go, you know what? Yeah, I'm very lucky to be alive. I'm very lucky to be here. So I just tell myself that and use that mantra. It's like, just go forward. You're doing it to help inspire others. There's nothing wrong with me. There's people with cancer. There's people that are sick, that are dying. It's like, we got to do it for them. We got to show them, it's like, fight for them, and because they would switch places with us in a heartbeat. And I know plenty of people that are ill right now. And it's like, I think of them and I'm like, I'm doing this. I'm fighting just as hard as they're fighting, and I'm fighting for them and helping them. So
that's the ultramarathon community, It's always supporting each other.
Yeah,
every single one of you I talk to is just like unbelievably positive, and it's just I'm supposed to be part of that community already, and after talking to so many people, I feel like guilty, like I'm faking my faking my life. So,
You're
so,
not.
so
You're still a baby.
I right away I was on the internet looking for ultra marathons, and I'm like, I have to do this. I have to do this like now. I have to be able to talk about this with
Yeah.
and be real about it. It
Now,
should
have
be
you run
real.
100 yet?
No, I was supposed to run
Oh,
a 63K and I was supposed to run a 10 hour in, but I got deported from Thailand
oh,
when I
well,
booked the
now you're
race.
there, so you can run there
Yeah, I'm
where
home
you're at.
now. And,
Yeah.
yeah.
There's
So
plenty of
yeah,
races in Canada. So,
June 8th, I'm trying to sign up to a 12-hour event, and
okay,
I'm gonna get it
do it.
done.
And I always tell people, if you're thinking about doing something, because now I've been doing all these 200s, which is my favorite distance, by the way. And
200?
people are, yes. And
Mhm.
people are like, I could never run that far, once again. And I'm like, no, it's totally easier than 100. It really is, because you break it down like you're doing like a fast pack almost. Like if you've done anything in the wilderness, I've done the John Muir Trail like 13 times, and it goes from Yosemite to Mount Whitney, and I've done it yo-yo out and back, and I have the record for that. But it's just like that. You just do it in little stages. So you go, okay, I got 20 miles to go to this next aid station. So you get there and you get to take a sleep break. You get to take an eat break, and it's the time that they give you to finish it is, you're not chasing a cutoff like you would in a hard 100. You've got plenty of time. Basically, you only have to do like 52 miles a day. And when I explain it to people like that, they're like, well, 52 miles, that doesn't sound that hard. And it isn't. And so I've convinced a lot of people to run 200-mile races that have one 100 or 200s. And some people I even meet out there that have never even run a 100-miler, and they're doing a 200 and they're finishing it. So it's, once again, up here. So if you want to do something, so I tell people, if they're thinking about it, why wait? What's next year and the next year? What if you're not here? Do it now. Like, don't keep talking about it. So if you want to run an ultra, do it now.
That's
Because
my
you may
that's my
not be
goal.
healthy next year. You know what I mean? And I tell people, when they're thinking, don't think, just, sign up and do it. You could train for it. It's a lot of it is up here, and with the 200s, I mean, unless you're Courtney or somebody really fast like that, majority of us, you're hiking all the uphills. Even she's hiking the uphills. You know what I mean? And so
Everybody
it's
has to.
just,
You can't
yeah,
really run them, can you?
no. And early on, it's like everybody's going slow. You're kind of getting your rhythm, and it's like you're not going to win the race or do a fast time by bolting out of the gate in a 200, because it's like people that are hours ahead of me, I pass at a sleep station because they've burnt themselves out and they're having to sleep more than they should have to. And I always just take 2 sleep breaks, like a 3-hour and a 2-hour, and that's it. So, and it's like, that's where I catch these people, because they're like running really fast, but then they crash and they have to sleep longer. So that's when you can like start passing people.
So that's the
So, but
game plan when you get out there. It's just
yeah, and
the
they're so
balance of
fun.
the pace and the
Yeah.
sleep.
And just
So
to have
how
fun,
so the 2 and 3 hour sleeps are basically like your go-to for those?
Yeah, and a lot of people don't even sleep that much. Like last year, it works best for me for 1 3-hour and a 2-hour. And well, last year I did the Triple Crown, which I'm doing again, and that's the 3 destination trail races. So it starts with Bigfoot 200 in Washington, then Tahoe 200 the following month in Tahoe, and then Moab 240 in October.
Ooh.
So yeah. So, and my problem last year, I didn't sleep more than 2 hours, like each race. And so for me, I just know I can run faster and do better when I get a 3-hour, and then later on, whenever I'm tired, a 2-hour. So my goal is always to get to the 100-mile mark and wait till I sleep. And people are always like, you're not sleeping yet? It's like, my body is so conditioned. I run over 141, 100 miles or more. And so I'm used to being able to stay awake for like 40, 48 hours before I start getting tired. And
Yeah,
so
that's
after
one
that
thing you
point,
get used to, right?
yeah. So in the 100-mile, I mean, when I get to the 100-mile mark of the 200, then I try to take wherever that 100-mile aid station is. It's usually a sleep station. So that's when I take my sleep break. And usually if you're pretty tired, you can sleep, but just last year I was taking too much caffeine. I got to remember, like, 4 hours out, do not 4 to 5 hours out, don't take any caffeine at all. That way I could sleep, because at the sleep stations, it could be noisy. I mean, people are coming in and out, but they provide you with like little eye shades and little earplugs. And I mean, you could carry that in your pack, but it's pretty cool the way they have it set up. And they try to make the sleep stations away from the aid station, so you're not disrupted if you're trying to sleep, because they understand, like people need to sleep so they can be successful. And the finishing rate of a 200-mile race is way higher than a 100-mile race.
Is it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Wait, because
is it because there's more experience, or just because?
No, there's just the amount of time, and you regroup after you sleep. You feel good again, so you get going. In a 100-mile race,
I guess people
you don't
are pushing pretty hard on those 100s, right?
Yes, exactly. Like, I mean, in a 100-mile race, I'm never sleep. I mean, that's not something you do. And so you are, it's a shorter distance, but at 200, they're allowing you so much more time. And I mean, the 200-mile races, they're not technically easy as in the terrain. I mean, Bigfoot's pretty hard. I mean, it's got a lot of technical stuff in it and scary shit like drop offs. So you have to keep your mind straight, because in the middle of the night, you can't see the 1,000-foot, 500 to 1,000 feet drop offs that if you slipped and fell, you could die. So you got to try to make sure you're on top of like paying attention too. So even though you're like tired, you have to be like paying attention. And what's really cool too about the 200s is you usually team up. So if you don't have a pacer, you team up with somebody in the middle of the night, like when you get ready to leave a sleep station. If you come in, most of we know each other. We've all been around for a long time. Most of the people that do these crazy things.
Yeah,
so
you all know each other.
Yeah, if I'm like, shit, I know we got a river crossing. I'm not going by myself in case something happens to me. So I look around and I'm like, who's going to leave, who's leaving soon? And, like this last year, my friend Dennis, I was running a lot with him, and especially at Bigfoot. And he's like, I'm going to sleep for an hour. And I'm like, great, I'll rest for an hour and then I'll leave with you. So you just kind of tag team with the person through the night, and we all take care of each other. And the race director, Candace, really stresses that to the point. It's like, you got to take care of each other, because think about it. It's not like a 100-mile race where you have aid stations 5 to maybe 10 miles is the longest stretch you go, maybe some of them 13. But in these races, you could go to up to 25 miles with no aid. So that's going to be like 7 hours to get to the next aid station or checkpoint. So if somebody's struggling, you're going to offer them stuff, and you're going to try to stay with the person if they're struggling. You want to stay together and for safety. You're not like in a 100-mile race, people would not care as much, but we all know in the 200-mile races, we got plenty of time, and we're going to make sure, we take care of each other,
Take care of your own, right?
Yep, exactly. It's true. It really is. I mean, I suggest everybody run a 200. If they've already run 100 and they're thinking about it, just do it. I mean, I'm not lying. I think it's easier than a 100-mile race. And it really is. So there's a lot of people that can't quite make some of these cutoffs for the harder 100-mile races, and they can finish these races, and they can't finish 100-mile races. So that's why I'm saying there's plenty of time to finish. So in a 200-mile race.
That's some good advice then.
Yes.
Everybody needs to sign up for a 200-miler.
They do.
So what race sticks out to you as your favorite so far?
So my favorite out of all the races I've ever run, and I've run in China, I've run Marathon des Sables in Morocco, I would say Bigfoot 200 is my favorite race because it's so beautiful. So you go around Mount St. Helens. So you're going around where this volcano erupted in the 70s, and it's like super technical. I'm talking like lava rocks or climbing over stuff. And then, like I said, the drop offs. I mean, there's parts where the trail is like, I'm like, shit, how am I going to get from there to there? There's like really no trail. And it's just like, okay, go for it, make it cross, make sure you don't fall. Your feet have to work for you. So pay attention. So I like that because there's a bit of a scare factor for me in that, being scared out there and being like, oh my God, just, you got to be paying attention. And it's definitely, it's a challenging race, but it's just beautiful. And you have plenty of time to finish, like I said. But I just love, it's so beautiful. The scenery is like nothing else I've ever seen. It's just amazing. And I've run all over the United States, but I love that course. I love it.
Yeah, I've looked up a bunch of things about that race. Obviously, I've looked up all of them.
Yeah,
It's
that's the
my
hardest one of the three too. But I suggest that one over all of them. I tell people if you're thinking about running one, if you can only run 200, I always tell them that one. That's, it's the most beautiful. I mean, Tahoe, it's, you're going around the lake. It's pretty, it's mountainous, but to run in something that you haven't run in that type of terrain, Bigfoot is different. Washington, just that whole area is like unbelievably beautiful. I mean, and it could be super hot and then cold at night and raining. It's like you're getting everything. But that is my favorite one.
What about the worst?
Worst race?
Ooh.
I don't think I like all of my races. I mean, if it had
None of them
bad
stand
times,
out?
it's somewhere. No, I mean, no, I can't think of one that was. I mean, there's been times where I've had really bad races at a certain race, but there's, I like them all, even loopy doopy things that are like 2-mile loops, and I find the beauty in all of that. But no, I've never had a race where it was like I can even say that was that bad where the organization sucked or anything like that. And a lot of times if you have problems with the race directors or whatever because the course is mismarked or it's not it's not their fault all the time, and it's like you let them know, and people pull the markings down and things like that, so people are going to get lost. And that's why with the 200s you have to carry on your phone. First of all, we have tracking devices on us for safety purposes, and we have the Gaia apps on our phone of the course. So if you go, because you're kind of loopy, you have to look at that on occasion, because you're like, even though you just saw a marking, you may have forgotten, like, did I see a marking? Did I not see a marking? Was there a marking? You just pull out your phone and you're going the right way. So
How does that
nowadays,
compare to before? When
like before what?
Before the phones were involved in the ultras.
Yeah. So I mean, there was no 200-mile races going on, that's for sure.
They're pretty recent, right?
Yeah. So Candace has been putting on Tahoe for 5 years. Last year was a 5-year anniversary of it, I think. Yeah. So she's been putting on the mountain 200s for 5 years.
Yeah,
other than
her
loop
races
things.
for like.
Yeah, she has some great. You should have her on. She's great. Yeah.
Well, she would come on. I would talk to her.
Oh, she would for sure.
Reach out for me then.
Yeah,
Tell her I want to talk to her.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I will message her.
She's so pumped about that.
Yeah, she definitely would be. She was going to do the Arizona, go for the FKT, and her calf is still, she's got a little twinge going on. So we're going to postpone it. We were going to start next, like in a week and a half, and I'm her crew chief, but we're going to wait till November 1st. So she's going to go for that 800-mile record, so she could be on to talk about that for sure, and about her races.
Well, that makes me excited.
Yeah. So I will definitly, when we're done, I'll message her and I'll give you her email and you can link up with her.
We'll be in touch. That'll be awesome.
Yeah.
I looked at all her races, and
she's a good one to have on.
I think it was the Moab that was like really inspired me when Courtney ran it, and that, what was it, 50?
Who knows? She won by like
remember,
20 hours or whatever, 15 hours.
I remember seeing the time, and I was like, how is that possible?
That video, did you see the one about the Tahoe 200 that just came out? So they have a video.
Watched a bunch.
Yeah, so she's in a video. They did a mini documentary on her at Tahoe last year when she was racing the guy, and she lost only towards the end.
Oh yeah,
just Google it. Yeah, that's really good. So she's very amazing.
At the last 1/3 of the course, right?
Yep, she's amazing. I mean, to look at a woman that's able to, well, not woman, a man, whatever, she can excel on a track. She, gets records on track times. Mountain races, wins so Western States. To be able to be so versatile as a runner, I'm just in awe, because usually you're either good in the mountains or good on the flats, or
that's what it is, right?
It's like, whoa, she's just really, amazing.
It's not normal at all for somebody to be able to.
No, and she's racing the guys. The guys have to worry about her. So yeah.
Oh yeah.
Awesome.
So why'd you write the book? What was the inspiration to do that?
So people have been asking me for years, like, you should write a book, because I have all these crazy ass stories of shit that happens, or
I've got that going on too.
Yeah. It's like I have tons of stories, like friends are with me, and we always have these near death experiences. I mean, I was climbing El Cap with my ex-husband and almost died, took a fall. I mean, I just tons of stories from just shit that I do because I do everything. And so, and then I wanted to talk about like how I got clean and sober, and write it down and things that happened in my past, talk about my eating disorder, talking about being molested. I mean, things that normally not everybody knew about me. And I thought, you know what, this is going to help people. I need to tell them how I became who I was. And I'm not this natural talented athlete or runner, but, it's like when you read about it, then you're like, wow, this has happened to me and it's not holding her back, and I just want women to know, don't let things hold you back. I was in abusive relationships, date rape, things like that. And it's like, you got to talk about stuff to help other people, and that's why I wrote it. Cause I knew my story needed to be told to help others. And that's the bottom line. I wanted to help others. And I know I am helping so many people because I get messages every single day. And I'm just so grateful. And I'm so privileged that they share with me, these things. And then they say, you know what, if you can do it, I can do it. And you've inspired me to sign up for an ultra, or you inspired me to start running again after 20 years of not running, and it's like other men and women can relate. So that's why I wrote it.
I've had a bunch of that as well. And it's like, I'm pretty sure you can relate to this, is we have these chaotic souls that just bring chaos constantly to our lives. And from what you said, you pretty much similar lives of things that happened and overcome those things and making your life go from negative to a positive and helping other people along the way with it.
And that's what you're doing with your podcast, getting word out there, like sharing about other people's stories so people could see that, they're not alone.
That's the thing about runners is like, I noticed all of you everyone had their own little story, and it wasn't just me that overcame my things. It was everyone I talked to. And then I was like,
isn't that amazing?
I want to talk to more people because I'm sure everybody has a story. And now I'm like, I've talked to about 12, 13 people, and everybody's story has just blown my mind. And I've got like 20 more people lined up to talk to.
That's awesome. Well, I even say his story. So he's in my book a lot. He came from a hoarding house of 22 dachshunds. This guy was afraid of everybody and everything. He developed a love and trust with me, and I took him out on the trails when he wouldn't even walk on a leash in the neighborhood because he was so afraid. The trail saved his life, like it saved my life. And so I always tell people, look, he's a typical ultra runner. We have something that happened in our past. This guy lived in a hoarding house and he ran ultras. So yeah, so it's even a dog, he's got a story of the same thing. And it's funny, it's like, doesn't matter. All of us ultra runners or people that run have that kind of background and story. We have a story that needs to be told.
And if you're out there and you're listening, you probably have that story in the making. If you're having addiction problems or just things that you can't really think that you can't overcome in your life.
Yep. And there's always help. Don't be afraid to ask for help. That's so important. You read about so much suicide in the news. And somebody just messaged me today that was going through something, and a good friend of theirs committed suicide. And I said, well, I attempted suicide as well. And luckily I survived. But it's like, really, surviving it, life isn't that bad. And these people just don't realize that it isn't that bad, that they're going to have a better life, that they can get help. And to kill yourself is not the answer and the reason. If you just reach out for help and get help, then you can have a whole new life, really. Yeah.
Find an ultra runner to talk to. They're
exactly.
the most helpful people in the world.
Exactly, for sure.
They're always willing to help. And I definitely have a testament to that, because everybody I talk to wants to help me out with my goals, and none of them ever tell me I can't. And it's just
you can. We'll never talk you out of it.
Yeah, you'll always talk them into it, right?
Yep, you'll be running a 200 miler.
200 miler. Watch. I'll be signing up.
Oh yeah, once you talk to Candace, she'll convince you.
I can't wait. I know what's gonna happen. I get completely obsessive compulsive.
Well, it's gonna happen.
Everybody will see way too much of me. I'll be all over the place.
It's a good thing though.
Yeah, it's
Like, right? Is it, there's worse problems to have.
I've had a lot worse problems. So yes.
Exactly. That's what I say. People are like, how do you afford to run races? I'm like, are you kidding? The amount of money I used to spend on drugs and partying, it's like, it's the same. It's like I'm at least doing something healthy now,
Yeah. Well, what do you need outside of that anyways? When
You
you're
don't.
like, most people spend money on, I don't know, things they don't need, and they
They
just
don't need it. Exactly.
house.
I don't need a brand new car. I just need a house. I need the mountains. I'm living like in a most beautiful place where I can run out my door and run to the mountains or drive 10 minutes, 15 minutes, be at 9,000 feet and running up to 11, 12, 13, 14,000 feet.
Well,
That's all I
and
need in life.
people ask like, well, what are you going to put in your house? Well, I'm going to put my race medals up, and I earn those. So
Exactly.
that's the best decoration you can put up on your wall.
Oh, yeah. I agree with you.
I love it. I love it every time I look at my race medals just from this year, because I've only been racing this year. And it's like a constant reminder of like, oh, look what you did.
No, and you need to see that so it inspires you to keep going. It's like when you start thinking, this is, and you look at that and you're like, no, I don't want to go back to that other life I had, because look at the life I have with this, just seeing objects and things. So
now it's like when I think about doing that stuff, it just blows my mind. Like, what?
Yeah, I'm the same way.
I don't want anything to do with that anymore.
Yeah, I don't even.
Like,
yeah.
well,
and I always say I don't have any regrets. I am very happy I was doing all of that, because it wouldn't have. We wouldn't be right here right now. We wouldn't have be running these. I wouldn't be having run 100 miles, 200 miles, and just doing everything. Had I not been that addict and had to recover and learn how to get a life. So I would be boring probably.
So how'd you come up with the nickname Dirt Diva?
So I didn't come up with it. It's a trail name. So when I was doing the John Muir Trail, I was doing an out and back of the trail. So I have the record for going from Yosemite to Whitney and then back. So nobody's attempted to break my record. It's 424 miles in 12 days, 4 hours and 57 minutes. So I was climbing up one of the passes on the way back, and there was a PCT, Pacific Crest Trail hiker. And when you hike long trails, everybody gets a name, or even the shorter trails now, people give each other names, because you don't use your real name when you're out there. You're like a different person when you're out on the wilderness hiking. So anyways, I was going up one of the passes, and this guy stops me, and he's like, oh my God, he goes, you look like a diva running up the trail all dressed up. He goes, but you're a dirty diva. And I looked at him and I was like, dirty diva? He goes, do you have a trail name? And I said, no. And he goes, Dirty Diva. And I said, I don't like that. And he goes, well, Dirt Diva. And I was like, oh, I like the sound of that. So it kind of stuck. And so I hiked the Pacific Crest Trail in 2007, and you get trail names there too. And I just used that because I already got it. So it's usually a name that you get from somebody. So all the long trails, Appalachian Trail, and places like that, most everybody gets a trail name
that's what
before they end the trail. Yeah. So you get these interesting trail names. And so when I meet people, when I'm out running and I'm seeing, because the Pacific Crest Trail hikers, they come into Bishop to do resupplies and stuff. So when I meet them, I always tell them my trail name too, because I'm like, oh, class of 07, and they're like class of 2019. And so you all kind of have a story. And so that's where I got it.
Oh, that's awesome. I got Furious Ferg bestowed onto me.
Yeah. So how did you get that?
It's because get pretty angry at myself when I run, and I scream a lot, and I just
well, it's perfect.
So I get upset at myself when I start to get like that little quitting mind, and I slow down a little bit, and then I start screaming at myself out loud, and then I start running faster.
Oh, I like that.
So you have a little message for people, a little bit on extra of the beautiful thing you already said.
So a message to
run a 200
people.
miler.
Yes, for sure. Run a 200 miler. Become comfortable with being uncomfortable if you're going to run ultras. So that's my main thing. For years, I tell people you have to learn how to be uncomfortable with being uncomfortable. When you can get through that in your mind, then you can accomplish anything, especially out on the trail. So that's my one thing. And I'll have fun. Always have fun. That's like my big goal in life is like, you're only here one time. So just enjoy it. Don't be hard on yourself. You know, it's just have fun and enjoy the journey.
That's great. Let people know where they can find you, where they find your book, and anything else.
They can find my book. So I have a website that should be finished by now. It's catracorbett.com, and they could order off of there. It should be up. If not, they can email me at dirtdiva333@gmail.com, and I can send them an autographed copy if they like.
Ooh.
Or they can find me on Instagram. Of course. They can find me on Instagram at dirtdiva333, Twitter, dirtdiva33, because there wasn't a 333 available, and I'm not sure why. So they can find me on Facebook. I have an athlete page, Catra Corbett. So that's where I'm at. And Truman even has a Facebook page. But you can find him wherever I'm at. Yeah, people are inspired. I get messages all the time. How do I get my wiener dog to run a 50K? And I'm like, I don't know about that. He's the only dachshund so far in the world that has run ultramarathon. So amazing.
Right,
yep.
Have any sponsors you want to shout out?
Oh, of course. Oh, God. So Hoka, dry mat socks, running skirts, fancy running, Chorus Global, Tailwind, Nathan Hydration, Blenders Eyewear, Squirrel's Nut Butter, Ultragam Gators. Like, am I forgetting anybody? I think I got everybody. I'm looking at what I have on. Yep. I think I got everybody.
Make sure to send me all those after, and I'll put it on your bio.
I will. Yeah, for sure.
All right. We have been speaking with Catra Corbett on the On Pace podcast. Thank you so much for coming on.
And thank you for having me.
No problem. And you can find us at Instagram, Facebook, YouTube at On Pace Podcast, Twitter at Pace Podcast, and our website is www.onpacepodcast.com.
Welcome to the On Pace Podcast. Welcome to the On Pace Podcast.